Good morning, everyone. I'm Scott Rutruck, proud to be the president of the Public Education Collaborative and VP of Vertex Partners. It was a fantastic presentation from Kimberly Williams, giving us an expert view into a future-proofed automated digital West Virginia. Fortunately, the path to West Virginia's digital future has been described beautifully by Ms. Williams and has long been under construction during the entirety of her public service by the relentless work and leadership of Senator Shelley Moore Capito. Her ability to shape U.S. policy, especially in these areas so important to a rural Appalachian state such as West Virginia, greatly accelerated in 2015 when Shelley began her first term in the United States Senate. She immediately introduced Capito Connect, the Capito Connect plan. I could recite a long list of what has brought billions of money potentially to West Virginia. But the best way is to hear directly from her about what's most important to the United States, to Appalachia, to her beloved state of West Virginia, and to this huge audience. Let's welcome to the stage Senator Shelley Moore Capito.
Thank you all. This is a tremendous audience, and I so enjoyed Kimberly's presentation. I was thinking, we think a lot about innovation and sometimes the folks that are really successful in life, like a Jeff Bezos, I think it's always good to remind ourselves he started in a garage selling books. You know, that's the American dream, and to see where Amazon has come, and you did leave one thing out of your presentation, at least when I got here, was that Amazon is also innovating on low-orbit satellites to bring that last bit of connectivity to places in West Virginia and across the country. So thank you to Amazon for what they're doing there. I have a couple thoughts. Yesterday I had the privilege of going to Anna Jarvis Elementary School in Grafton. It goes only to the 4th grade. I have a program called West Virginia Girls Rise Up, where I try to inspire that next generation of women or girls to be the next women leaders in all different phases of life, whether it's an astronaut or college or firefighter or whatever it might be, U.S. senator, whatever. And they all had their iPads that they are issued from their school. So we have been leading, I think, in that, in terms of equipping our students, at least through the schools. But they always kind of bring you right down to earth, the 4th graders do, when you ask them a question. So I asked them, I have 3 pillars, and one of them is self-confidence. And I asked them, well, what does self-confidence mean to you? And one of the young ladies said, she said, well, what it means to me is when you get up in the morning and you go to school and you have a bad hair day, you tell yourself, it could always be worse. So that was my overriding thought of the day yesterday, and actually, I thought it was pretty good. So Donna, thank you for inviting me to address the crowd today, to talk about a passion that Scott mentioned that I had. And I realized when I began running for Senate, even though I'd represented a third of the state for 14 years, I realized there are so many far reaches of this state that still lack the connectivity that we need. So as Kimberly talks about the building blocks of AI, I looked at her chart that she put up. Unfortunately, we're still in some of the beginning phases of some of this. Part of my day today is I invited the director of NIH, National Institutes of Health, to come and hear what's going on in the state at the WVU Medical Center, what's happening at Marshall as well, research dollars. But I went to the first session earlier this morning, and once I realized I was not as smart as everybody in the room, AI was repeatedly emphasized in terms of research, health outcomes, and how it can help a state like ours. So AI is very much on the minds of us as policymakers. So we got together through the bipartisan group of Senator Rounds and Senator Schumer, and we had seminars to educate us, because we're lifelong learners, believe it or not, lifelong learners, to learn what AI means and what it can do and all the different reaches of it. And I tell you, it was amazing, the vast reach of AI, but also for us as policymakers, the troubling aspect of it is, can you regulate, do you regulate, and does the regulate squash innovation? Does it keep it too wide open? Does it make it more susceptible for younger people? Is cybersecurity taken into consideration? All the different things that we know are connected to AI that can have good outcomes and great outcomes, but also can have some bad outcomes at the same time. And if you look at what's happening around the world in terms of military and international security, you can see AI is all through. What do we have? Precision-guided missiles, all kinds of missed intelligence opportunities maybe in other areas. How can AI help this? And I actually thought about the connectivity aspect of our lives when I heard yesterday that the bridge that was run into by the cargo ship and came down, when I read the aftermath of it, the 6 construction workers that were on the bridge, horrible ending for them, and very, very sad to hear. But when I realized that traffic was stopped so that there weren't any real vehicles, regular vehicles on that enormous bridge, think about what the connectivity did to that. It came from that cargo ship to the DOT, I would suppose, to whoever's guiding the traffic. Within minutes, they were able to save so many lives while losing the 6 that unfortunately lost their lives. So I think about this and how important it is in our state. So if we look at where we've been in our state, we're behind the curve. We're behind the curve in terms of connectivity. We're probably behind the curve in terms of usage. And in order for all of us to succeed, we're working every single day, whether it's Capito Connect or other initiatives, at the federal, state, local level, to try to at least get basic building block 1 completed. And so I'm pleased to say, because of the bipartisan infrastructure package that was passed 3 years ago, in that is a major investment in the state. It's over $1 billion. We got one of the largest investments, because that investment is supposed to go to 2 very critical groups in our state: the unserved and the underserved. So an underserved person would be somebody who might have a bit of connectivity, but it fades out all the time. Or during a COVID experience, you might be somebody who would be remote learning while your parent is trying to remote work and it crashes the system. And so you don't have enough vibrancy to your coverage to be able to carry the signals. Not to mention maybe your teenager back in their room watching Netflix at the same time and trying to stream a program. So this investment that is still yet to be seen here in West Virginia in terms of real dollars is not here yet, because the West Virginia Broadband Council, I think, has been doing an incredible job working with ARC. I know Gail's going to be here to speak about that. USDA, EDA, the state investments. All of these investments we've got to coordinate. We know, let's be honest, West Virginia, we burned ourselves, or got burned, in 2010 with our first bite at this apple. I want to make sure that that never happens again, and you want to make sure it never happens again. So we have 271,000 households that are unserved and underserved. And so these dollars are going to be going to those households first. Hopefully local providers, they're bidding on that right now. But the digital equity piece is a really important part of this, because as part of our plan, we have to have a digital equity plan. That means, for us, it means how we're going to get to the holla that hasn't been reached, or how are we going to get to the last home, how are we going to get to the last business, how are we going to make sure that the signal's not just good enough, but vibrant enough to carry that. And so West Virginia was one of the first states. You talked about some of our firsts. We were one of the first states to deliver a successful digital equity plan to the Department of Commerce. So we're moving that right now. We're now in the critical point now as to how we're going to deploy these dollars. So, I mean, when we think about all of the different ways those young students at Anna Jarvis yesterday, it's going to be critical for them, not just in the classroom, but when they go home. We've also digitized some of our buses so that for long commutes, it's school buses that can keep the signal. And we're also working in DC on deploying 5G to make sure that our cell phones are carrying the signals and that we can participate in the new 5G economy. So we're supposed to have a spectrum sale, which is going to generate a bunch of dollars, which is going to create the 5G signals that are going to be able to go to the more difficult part. But I'm sure you're not going to be surprised to learn that we haven't quite gotten there yet. We've let that privilege of selling the spectrum lapse for over a year. We had a hearing on it just the other day, and the questions I had for them was, what are you going to do about rural America? How is rural America going to benefit from a spectrum sale? Well, it creates dollars. It creates the ability to deliver the signal as all the technologies increase. So I think that it's going to be a bright day when we can all quit talking about who's connected and who isn't. I'm sure back when they were deploying electricity back in the day, that was probably the conversation. Well, does Webster County have it or Pocahontas County have it? Someday we're not going to have to discuss that. We're going to be discussing how it's used in AI, how it's improved the life and lifestyles of so many people in our state, how it's created economic opportunities, how it's let that entrepreneur who wants to live on the New River Gorge be able to sell their products all across or send engineer specs all across the world to be able to be a engineering or an architect as you're after you've gotten out of your raft and you've rafted down the New River Gorge. So I think that really holds great promise for all of us, and I know many of us have been working on this. One of the areas of great concern, I think, for this is how are we going to protect our children? And you see the big, I might get booed on this one, but the big controversy over TikTok. So the House passed a bill that said the ownership of TikTok has to move to an American country. It cannot be held by the Chinese. And it passed overwhelmingly. I believe only 50 people voted against that. I'm for this. But my office has been getting deluged with phone calls about, please don't stop TikTok. Well, we're not trying to stop TikTok. We're just trying to put the firewall between the Chinese and our young people and others who use TikTok to make sure that it is safe. And I'll give you an example of why this really makes me realize that this is an important initiative that we need to do. We get phone calls, and I know Joe's going to be speaking to you later. He might get phone calls from people that tell him how great he is, but most of the ones I get are telling me what I'm doing wrong. I mean, that's a bigger motivator for people. And so my phones have been lighting up with people calling about TikTok. 11-year-olds, 12-year-olds. A 13-year-old called my office and she said, if the senator votes to end, or no, she kind of wasn't sure what she was saying, but she said, if you take my TikTok away, I'm going to kill you. Yeah. Well, we can't take these threats. These are not idle threats in this day and age. We have to take this seriously. We called the Capitol Police. The Capitol Police went out to her home to talk to her with her mother. And as the conversation came along, they asked, how did you do this? Why did you do this? And she said, well, it's a TikTok challenge. So to me, that tells you what a powerful instrument this is to have young children, not even barely teenagers, calling your office, professing violence or being very upset, and in some ways not even really sure what they're saying or how it's going to impact them. Just think if it was something else. Just think if it was our elections. Just think if it was a false flag attack on Dallas, Texas. Just think if one of our electrical plants, it was a false report on electrical plant, exploding. I mean, you could name all kinds of things that could push the public sentiment into a direction. Now, we can do that now, on other platforms, but we're not the Chinese. And we know the Chinese want to become the supreme power here in this world. So I am going to vote for that if it comes forward, and hopefully it will be sold. I have full confidence it will be sold. It's a profit maker. Somebody's going to buy it. Somebody's going to recreate the algorithms, and TikTok will live. It may not be called TikTok, but it will live in another form. When we realized Jeff Bezos was just in his garage 20 years ago, think of where the evolution of all of this will come. So people have come to us to ask us as policymakers, can you put the guardrails on for children? We do have 60 people are on a bill to try to help with reining in what children can and are allowed to do on the internet. I also am on a bill with Senator Klobuchar that would say that you can't use AI to use it in false ways. We saw that just a couple weeks ago, where I guess they had generated a fake Joe Biden. I don't know what he was doing. I don't know if he was running a 100-yard dash or something, but generate a fake thing from our president. So to try to put some guardrails on that. But I'm going to tell you what, that is not going to be an easy prospect for policymakers because of where I started. It's very complicated. It can be, we tend to regulate behind where the innovation is. And if we regulate, and by that what I mean is we're going to regulate to what the standards are today, when you all in this room are going to be innovating to the standards of tomorrow, and our regulations aren't going to be as applicable or as effective or to be able to make the difference that we want to see them make. So I would just say we have done a great job. There's one other aspect of connectivity in West Virginia I did want to talk about, and that is the affordability piece. We found during COVID, when everybody needed to remote work, telehealth, teleeducation, even teletourism, that was a big thing. Can I go off to Ogilvy, and am I going to be connected when I go there? Because I can telework, but I have to have that connectivity. And what we found is on the digital equity piece is some people cannot afford even a $30 plan or a $40 plan, or we're making the choices that that's not a priority for them. So we created during COVID something called the Affordable Connectivity Plan. It's ACP. Is anybody aware? No. Yeah. And in West Virginia, I believe it's over 100, I don't have the exact number, but maybe 150,000 people in the state of West Virginia are getting $30 a month to help them pay for their connectivity. And in some ways, in many plans, because the providers have to create a plan to that level, it pays for all the connectivity. And some might get an enhanced one, so they got to pay the rest of their bill if they have an enhanced connectivity. So it is going to expire here in the next 3 weeks, and I have a feeling it will expire. It does go too far. We need to have it means tested. We need to make sure everybody doesn't get it. For instance, if you get free and reduced lunch in your county, anybody who has kids is allowed to have the Affordable Connectivity Plan. Well, it's billions and billions of dollars a year, so focus in on some reform and try to provide that baseline affordability to those folks that will get left behind, are being left behind now. So we want to see, I believe we should try to continue the program under much stricter guidelines to be able to help those families, and particularly because the kids, when they come to school the next day, you know what? They're behind. They're behind, and that's not fair. It's not fair to them. It's not fair to their families. It's not fair to the teacher who's trying to move the class along. So I just, the other thing that I'm really, really passionate about in this whole connectivity through the IIJA is we have to have better accountability for the spend of the federal dollar. We have to know that if somebody comes in and says they're going to connect 60,000 homes in Nicholas County and Greenbrier County, and they get 5 years to do it, that they don't turn back around in 5 years and go, oh, sorry, we couldn't do it, here's your money back. That's not how we're going to get there. We have to have connectivity, and we wrote that into the bill. The connectivity transparency portion of this huge amount of money that's going to be coming to West Virginia is built into the bill so that we're not taken advantage of, and those that are without will have the joys of connectivity, the troubles of connectivity that sometimes I think I outlined with when it can be misused and abused. And so I am on the Commerce Committee, which deals with all of this. And so we are trying to find our way to deal with AI, to deal responsibly with the regulatory aspects of it, to protect our children, online, but to make sure that equal access to connectivity is something that here in West Virginia we can all take advantage of. So thank you for having me today, and I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.